Have you been wanting to get closer to spirit? Then you're going to really enjoy today's podcast show. This is Wednesdays with Willa, and I am your host, Willa White. And this is my weekly podcast show that airs on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern on my Facebook page, Willa White Medium. It also goes out on my YouTube channel, and you can find it on the Lilydale Assembly Facebook page, as well as Blog Talk Radio. If you want that listen only feature of Blog Talk Radio, you can go to blogtalkradio.com/Lilydale Radio. I'm one of the Lilydale Radio shows that happens throughout the week. So I encourage you to tune in and like and share and follow and subscribe and all those good things. And on my particular show, I like to have a special guest, and we usually have a conversation relating to spiritualism, mediumship, healing, faith, family, or more. And I am delighted to welcome back to the show, Joseph Shiel. Thanks for being on the show today, Joe.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's always great to be able to have a spiritual discussion with you. And for those of you who don't know who Joseph Shiel is, he is the pastor of the church in New Jersey, which is the Journey Within. And we're so glad that he's able to take over that position recently and be able to help those who are wanting to seek spiritualism and understand mediumship and healing in that special way. He's also in the past been a registered Lilydale medium, and you're an evidential medium and spirit artist. So I encourage people to look back at the archive videos of the show. You can find that on Willa White Medium on Facebook or on the YouTube channel. Type in Joseph Shiel and you will be able to binge watch to your heart's content. We've had great topics relating to mediumship, spiritualist principles, and also spirit art, where Joe actually showed us some of his spirit art and how that creationary process happens for him. And today we're going to talk about drawing closer to spirit. And Joe's going to be able to showcase some of the ways that he utilizes that and the tips that he would give you to draw closer to spirit. And I'm excited to have you share today. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Today, Joe.
It's good to be here. It really is. It's always good to see you, and I'm glad everything's going well and kids are doing good and everything, right? So
absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad to be here, and I guess the saying "drawing closer to spirit" has been around since I started, because I didn't know what else to do. But if I could get closer, then maybe I'd be a better medium. Maybe I'd feel better about my life. Maybe I'd feel better about me, my own spirit connection. So that's how it all started. Was just kind of came to mind that that's what I need to do. You know, it's not they come to me, but I have to kind of open myself up to be able to receive them. And I think for a good part of my life, I was kind of repelling them more than anything else, you know, like pushing them, like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to know that. I don't, you know, and too frightened, I guess, you know, all kinds of fears that keep us from moving forward for the betterment of ourselves and for others. So, you know, and that comes from all kinds of things. I'm not going to blame anybody else. It's just more just that knee-jerk reaction to something that's different. And so you kind of run or you hide or you know, and those are the kinds of things that used to happen to me. Drawing closer to spirit was when I started drawing closer to religions and to understanding, you know, what's it all about, Alfie? Why am I here? You know, this type of thing. And sure, those common philosophy questions and theological questions, really what prompted a life of coming closer. And the more I came closer, the more I wanted to know more. So it's that simple. A lot more to it, I suppose, but it really came down to that simple nature of, I really want to know what this is all about, you know, and I want to know the truth. And
the questing soul wants to know, right?
Yeah. Just inquiring minds want to know. So,
well, sometimes you get to that place where there has to be more than what we see with our physical eye. There has to be more of the unseen world that we can connect with, and that we can orchestrate a conversation if we have that desire I like to tell my students, if you have right intention and right practice, beautiful
Mhm.
things can happen with
Yeah.
our mediumship. And so when you're in that space of not repelling, as Joe is just talking about, but being willing to be open and attract. And that's one of our spiritual natural laws. That as
Mhm.
spiritualists, we believe so strongly in that we have that law of attraction, the law of created reality,
Mhm.
and that at some point you decided to take personal responsibility for your spiritual path
Mhm.
and go into the seeker mode
Right.
and be willing to see things in a new light.
And you just said it, that principle of spiritualism, which is personal responsibility, um, was probably never understood. And as a child, um, I can remember losing my mother at 12 and becoming an angry young man, becoming very angry towards God. Matter of fact, him and I were on opposite ends of the spectrum. I just didn't want anything to do. I couldn't understand, how can you have so much pain in the world? How come there's so much suffering? I mean, we look at any time during the history of humankind and we all say, oh, geez, it's getting a lot worse. Well, no, it's always been worse. It's always been human nature that we hurt each other, that we challenge each other, we compete with each other to the point of killing each other, the and then we have Mother Nature on top of that. We have the hassles and the tragedies that happen because of the life in the planet, and I couldn't I couldn't get away from that question, why? But I didn't say it why in such a way as, oh, please explain it to me. No, I said, why are you doing this to me? So it was always somebody else's fault. It was always
Mm.
God's fault or somebody else's fault. And that attitude as a young man was one that really tore me up, but it was bringing me closer to the answers, because at some point the pain got great enough that I said, I guess I gotta sit still and listen for a minute, and maybe find those answers. And I think over time of that search of, why is this happening? How can I be of help to other people? Why do so many people have to suffer? It put me in a mode of serving others. I was like, well, God's not doing it, so I'll do it, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
that warped ego of, I can fix this, made me go into directions of things that really weren't healthy. Uh, One, I went into business, did very, very well in business. Why? I figured if I had enough money, I could fix the world, that type of thing. But the fact of the matter is, it destroyed me and destroyed the people around me in a lot of ways, and it just in emotional ways, if not anything else. So it came to time where, if you're drawn closer to spirit, this shift comes from this confusion, this human condition, to, there is more, there must be more, because this isn't working. This doesn't make sense. And in a lot of ways, it doesn't. But when you get far enough away from here to a place of insight, and that place of insight is that which we've already known. In other words, Bernard Lonergan, a wonderful Jesuit philosopher, most famous philosopher of the 20th century, uh, said, he wrote a book about insight. So what that comes down to mean is finding my way back from whence I came. So in other words, we're in the confusion, but we know all too well what the perfection of God is, what the perfection of love is, what kindness is, what oneness is, what co-creativity is. We know all that. We've known it, each and every one of us. Some of us are further away or further distracted or separated here in this world by all kinds of things, whether it be you're a woman, I'm a man, you're black, I'm white. We continue to separate and kind of pick on the little things, instead of saying, okay, where are we alike? Where do we meet? Because we've all come from the same. And he talked about how we find insight, which is, we find those little things that make sense, that are part of God, that bring us back from the separation into into this sense of well-being, this sense of love, this sense of peace, this sense of knowing the soul, and that the soul is part of all souls. And with that, I found a way to look at things differently. So when I started to study Bernard Lonergan, and he's this person I actually knew, but when I started to study his works, I really began to think, okay. So I delved into the religion that was his religion, greater than I ever had, although I was part of it my whole life. And that brought me to more confusion, because religion is a human-made thing, and it still wasn't the purity of it. It still has too many kind of trappings, if you will. Whereas when I found spiritualism, I didn't find those same doctrines, creed, or trappings, or you do this or else. What I found was, be responsible for your own well-being and your own spiritual path. You may not have the same experiences as others. You may not have to walk the same walk as others. You may have different talents, different dreams, different hopes, different desires, different understandings in who you are and what your life has been. Then it came to pass that I understood that nothing that had happened in my life whatsoever was a waste. Nothing had been wasted or mistaken. Yes, horrible things had happened. I not only had things horribly happen to me, I also probably have done some horrible things to others, just in my own attitude or anger or whatever the case may be. But none of it was wasted. Now I understood what it was to be fully aware of this person and say, okay, do I like what I see? And if I don't, how can I use it to help others that may be going through the same torture, self-inflicted, in order to find the peace within themselves and that higher source within themselves? Once that came about, and we start to see the higher source, we start to see the beauty of spirit, then it's a whole different motivation. It's no longer fear, it's no longer confusion. It's, oh my goodness, I want that. So at that point, I started chasing spirit. And it came to being after a while that the chasing wasn't right either. The chasing got me confused and crazy, and I'm thinking this and I'm thinking that, and I'm delving into stuff that it was absolute silliness as far as I'm concerned. And I said, let's get real. So the best thing I ever did was I sat still. I quieted the mind and I said, okay, I'm ready. You show me. I'm not going to chase you anymore. Just help me. And at that point, that prayer, that demand of spirit, things shifted completely. And it wasn't like you had to wait a long time. It wasn't like, oh, I sit there in horror, or I sit there in pain, or I sit there suffering. It was almost instantaneously that I am no longer alone. The spirit's all around, and that whatever I need is only a thought away, and whoever I want to be with is only a thought away. And that's when I began to draw closer and closer to spirit, because I trusted that to be for my well-being and all those around me's well-being, because a better person, Joe is a better person, does better work for everybody else than the guy that used to own a big corporation and run roughshod over everybody. So this is the difference in life. Now it takes time, takes unfoldment, takes some work, it takes some sitting still. And I guess that's the beginnings of it. But having come to the point where you can trust spirit, your whole being wants to draw closer. You want to be with them. Because it is the nature of you that is forever. It was, you always were spirit, you are spirit, and you always will be. So it is the truth of you. So the closer you draw to your truth, the more content and unfeathered you are. And the healing begins. All kinds of things, physically, mentally, emotionally, and otherwise. And so, as I say to clients, as I say to my students, it's important to come to know yourself and then take full responsibility for who you are. Full responsibility. It's nobody else's fault if you have a bad day. It's yours. It's nobody else's. You can blame the utility company, you can blame the things, this over here, you can blame that organization, you can blame that person, somebody ticked you off. But the fact that you took it and rambled it around, made yourself have the worst day of your life, again, is really your choosing. Meanwhile, the light that shines the truth on all of it was always there and accessible. Did you choose that? No, you chose to be in the mud with everything else.
Right.
Well, am I human? Do I still do that once in a while? Yeah, I get pretty muddy sometimes, but
Wallow like a pig in mud. I think we all have our pity party moments that
Well,
we have to
it's
get
true.
through life, and so it takes us back to that spiritual natural law, the law of truth. And that's really about divine truth, because we all have our versions of what truth might be for us, our own reality, your reality, their reality, and then there's the reality with a capital R, like the capital truth, P of truth, right? And then we're able to have that sense of spirit on a compassionate detachment level, working with us in our lives as a guiding force, as a loving force. And it's not about fair or unfair per se. It's just about the being of those moments. And I like what you said about sitting still, like when your thoughts are running away from you, or you feel like your life is running away from you, and it's just too busy, and taking those moments of the quiet to enter into the silence, to feel the presence of the divine, the presence of spirit.
If you're chattering in your mind, or you're talking and complaining, or telling it like it is, all this, if you're doing all that and you're just going on and on and on, there's no room for the pause. And there needs to be a pause, a weighing of such. Where am I? Am I in my human condition, or am I trusting my spirit, my higher self, to see this clearly, with all the aspects and all the truths that higher self carries with it, that it was born with, that it continues with? Okay, so am I trusting that, or am I trusting my next knee-jerk reaction, my next emotion, my next warped or taught thought from one family or one school or another? Am I going with someone else's opinion or that taught me, or am I going with the truth within me? And so I end up going off track if I do it my way, because no matter how subtle that is, it's ego. It's look what I can do. Look how I can prove that spirit's here. Look at how I can do this, And every time I do that, you're becoming the power instead of sitting in the power. And there's the separation. So you can get very confused by just knee-jerk reacting and not having that pause. What we do is we pause, we quiet down, we sit in that upper room, if you will, and we wait. And what are we waiting for? We're not waiting for some vision or some entity to step in, or some ridiculous idea of things, some construct of spirit. We're waiting for spiritual pressure. Spiritual pressure is the weighing of the right and wrong, the good, the bad, the up and downs, with the weighing of, is this of me and my spirit, or is this of my fears and wants and desires. And when it's that, it's always going to steer me into another problem somewhere down the line. It may fix the problem for the time being. I may be relieved of that situation, that argument, that dealings that I'm in today for the time being. But meanwhile, it has led me down yet another dark tunnel, and I'm in trouble. We can look at things in the greatest sense of things. We can look at, say, somebody did something wrong or violated somebody else's rights or feelings or being in some way, and we can all come out as a gang. You know, we can light the torches to come and get Frankenstein, that horrible thing, and we can march up to the castle and say, "You got to die," you know, and we can all go that way, and we can get caught up in that mentality, that gang mentality, that it's only the right thing to do. We need to rid ourselves of this malice, this wound upon humanity, you know, and so we go with it, you know, and we hurt somebody else, even though they've hurt us, and we are satisfied for the time being. For the time being, oh, we did it. We're all good. We rid of him, got rid of her, whatever the case may, you know, and all high and mighty. But the problem is, in the big picture of things of humanity, that doesn't help. That doesn't teach. That doesn't help us move forward. It tears down. It slows the process. It creates yet another mountain to overcome. And that is, are we really truly about caring for each other, no matter what the situation is? Are we of service to other souls, other beings, or are we judge and jury? And as spiritualists, we should not be a judge and jury. We should be open to the fact that, okay, there are people from all different walks of life, all different calamities of life, all different upbringings, all different religions that enter into the pews of a spiritualist church and the spiritualist principles. And if we begin to say, do you believe in God? Yes, the first principle. Well, how so? Because just saying you do doesn't mean you do. Just thinking you do doesn't mean you do. Do you trust it completely? If not, you have a lot of work to do. And the work is sit still, stop, halt. You know, the hungry, angry, lonely, tired thing. Stay still. Do you trust that God loves you completely and is not going to let you fail? No matter what happens in your life, it's okay, that it's going to be all right? If not, then there's probably more to be dealt with and more to be, and I'm not saying dredge up all the ruins of the past and walk through all your pain again. That's not what I'm saying. You can go to therapist after therapist and do that. You can pay a lot of money and do that, you know, and they're like, oh, tell me a story. Where did it all start? You know, you can do the clinical type therapy and maybe you'll get some things out in the open where you can see them, God bless them. Or you can do an internal inventory of what is serving me well and what is tearing at me over and over and over again, because it's my focus all the time. There's a time in life to choose joy, to choose peace, because that's who we are. There's a time in life where we, more than likely, because of our human condition in this physical place, we choose pain because we want to feel what's going on. And sometimes we think we're choosing, you know, the high and mighty. We think we're choosing all that, but we're just choosing pain because we're familiar with it. So I'm asking people to draw closer to spirit so that you see the benefits of the spirit intelligence, to see the benefits of their walk before us. When we as mediums talk to spirits in the spirit world, these are people that were real people that lived real lives. They're not guides and teachers in some fictitious, construct of the mind. They're the real deal. They were here. They've been here, done this, walked the walk, talked the talk, felt the sting, owned band-aids, whatever the case may be. And here they are with all the knowledge that we need to avoid maybe some of the pitfalls that they fell into, avoid some of the pains that they didn't see in life and walked right into and suffered. We're evolving as a species, and yet sometimes we fall back because we're not diligent enough, or I want to say open enough to become instruments of peace, to become truly a light of what the truth is, that big R reality, okay, then as opposed to just bouncing off the walls. And so when I say drawing close to spirit, it's my way of living. If I'm feeling bad, if I'm feeling sad, if I'm broken by a recent passing or something, like we just talked about, Janet No Havoc's church and how I become pastor. I mean, I'm moved more than you can ever know, because I never expected it. And I love Janet completely. And so I feel not only an obligation, but an honor in that. And I look at the universe and go, wow, something's up. Something's up. And what a gift that is to me. What a fortunate event for me, and what an unfortunate event for her. And the rest of us, having lost her to this physical world. But my belief in her power where she is now is greater than anyone can imagine. That she's still in charge. I'm a lackey.
Because spirit draws close to us.
Yes.
And we draw close to them, and it says there's a beautiful vibrational frequency that happens.
Yes.
When you are returned to that recognition of energy and love again. And Janet is one of those examples of a medium. When mediums come through in readings, it's really fascinating because they're usually really good communicators.
Oh yes,
They've
learned the ropes long
and
before.
it's like if you're good at it here, you're usually good at it there. And it's beautiful that they will visit their people. I often say, when it's your turn to pass, you're going to go visit your people. You're going to go check in on them. And in Janet's case, she's going to, give a nudge here or a shove, as the case may be.
Shove, right. Exactly. The nature. Personality doesn't change after the change called death, right?
That's right. Although we do get version 2.0 is what I like to call it.
That's good.
And they're not all seeing or all knowing. I don't want people who aren't used to talking about spirit think that they're omniscient in any way, but they usually are able to see with better eyes what their life was like, how they interacted, and how they affected people here on the earth plane. And
they're unencumbered eyes. They're not stuck to the same standards as we are. They don't have the physical pains, the physical thing. They don't have the same emotions. They don't have the same need for that, because there's a trust in the process. Mm-hmm. Imagine for yourself, if I were to go over today, if I were to pass today, and I actually knew what my life was all about, wouldn't a lot of things become a lot more clear? And wouldn't the power of who I am and where I sit become a lot more evident? And so it does. And so it is. So it's more, to me, drawing closer to spirit is to become more spiritual in my life. Mm-hmm. And if I become more spiritual in my life, I create a better seat and a more inviting place for spirit to come and dwell, or to stay, or to communicate. I think a lot of mediums make the mistake of chasing spirit around the ephesus, trying to find them. And it's a lot of busy work, and it's a lot of ego, because it's they're trying to find, oh, I've got this one, I've got this, I'm trying to prove something, when in fact, it's not about proving anything. It's about accepting and really becoming the best vessel or the most tuned instrument, so as to give them the opportunity and the tools in which to communicate with and be that instrument, be that tool that they can use. It's like I just recently bought a brand new recliner. I've never owned a recliner in my life, but I'm old now, you see. So
You're going for the lazy boy, huh?
I'm going for the lazy, I'm going for that nice little recliner, so I can, pull that handle and go back, and it fits like a glove. I tried a ton of them. I went off to all these furniture stores, and I tried, and this one just, it fits my girth, it fits my butt. This is it, it's nice. And so I lay back in that, and I'm ready to snooze. I'm comfortable, So when I think about drawing closer to spirit, I said, where can I make it most comfortable? Where can I be there? Where can I be their recliner? Where they can just sit and trust me to put them in a peaceful, safe, secure place in order to participate in the communication and the conversation, and to put their words forth the way they most wish, not the way I want it to sound, or the way I think it should sound, or the way I want to dramatize it to sound, but more to have it be them, their essence, sitting in the recliner, talking the truth of whatever they have to say. And in that way, I feel like, is there a lot to do? Yeah, there's that one big thing to do. It's called trusting. It's called non-judgment. Because imagine the people that have passed on. Go by any graveyard and see how many people are probably trying to communicate, but they probably sitting by the stone going, oh my God, I can't do it.
I have to say, I don't think a lot of spirits hang out in graveyards
no,
the
they
way
don't.
some people
They
try to
don't.
portray
I'm
that.
just trying to get
How
it.
boring is that?
That'd be pretty boring. But I'm showing the frustration they must have
Yes.
sometimes. So as we sit to communicate with them, we draw closer to being like them. And by doing so, we earn friends. We earn those camaraderie. We earn their respect and who they are. We earn their teachings. We earn it by becoming more making an effort to become more spiritual ourselves. Spiritualism is often mistaken to be mostly about death or the dying, because we have mediumship involved, and people misconstrue that. What you just said is true. As mediums, they become better communicators in spirit. Why? They've spent a lifetime in the spiritual work. So they've drawn closer to spirit and being spiritual before they're even passing, and thus had a much richer, much more, incredible life, more succinctly focused on the important things of life, not the tchotchke of life, but having things that really matter, like friendships, love affairs, and whatever the case may be, but knowing people deeply and intimately, and caring enough to be of service at all times, that our life is not our own.
Mm-hmm. It's about relationships,
right?
And continued relationships.
Exactly.
Even if people are on different planes of existence, this is a multi-dimensional reality that we can experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good thing to note for people that if you don't feel spirit 24/7, that's a good thing. It's all right. You don't need to be, just as in your efforts to draw closer to spirit doesn't mean that they get to move in with you and, haunt you like a big video team, monitoring your every move. This is something that they'll visit. You've made the invitation, you've made the recliner just right for them,
Mm-hmm.
and that you are extending an invitation to come at this particular time, either an appointment time that you have for a reading, or at a message service, or at a church service.
Right.
Those are times that you have this appointment, and you can make those appointments for yourself at home too, with spirit.
And it's not, and you're correct in the fact that, you know, it's a very small section of society that may be gifted in a way or talented in a way to experience spirit and be able to endure the rigors of understanding what that is to be a medium, understand what it is to live a life as a medium, and to really go forward. There are many people of all walks of life. I often say to, when I'm training people in ministry, your ministry is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, no matter what you're doing. It's not just on Sunday for an hour. Okay, it is in everything you do. So you may never serve a church. You may never serve a service, if you will. You may never do a wedding or a funeral. But what you do is, at your factory job or at your office or at your gym where you work, you know, you become the power of example of what it is to live spiritually. And you become that power for others, that insistence upon, isn't there something better? You know, it's not about maybe doing this job. It's about those relationships, those kindnesses that we can show, those generosities that we can show, that the interaction of spirit to spirit, mind to mind, soul to soul, as opposed to you do this and I do that, and that whole war that goes on between us, just subtly in the reaches of our own competition with each other. It's one thing to compete in a sporting event. It's another thing to compete with I'm better than you. It's more about the best athletes I know, the best musicians I know, and some of the best people I know that, you know, in theater and otherwise, are people who never competed with other actors or other musicians or other, you know, singers or other artists of any kind or other athletes. They're the people who competed within themselves to utilize the gifts that they were given, the strength that they were given, the intelligence they were given, the improv that they were given, to be better at what they do, to be the best, so as to give themselves to the world.
It's an internal motivation that happens on a soul level.
It's a constant alignment with what was given to them at birth and given to them in the beginning. This was the life they were given. Are they honoring it and competing with themselves to be most honoring of it? Or are they, you know, distracted by other things, like what are they doing over there? What is he doing? And why has he got this and I don't have that? And that's the downfall of people, is to get distracted away from your relationship with the higher source, with a God of your understanding. When you get distracted from that, then you don't feel drawn to spirit. You feel drawn to the minutiae of this world, actually.
Yes,
Which is
the illusion, the Maya.
Yeah, instant fixes, but not an overwhelming happiness. So
I think it's a combination of, as you were saying, there is a deliberateness in your invitation of spirit being that God source, the presence of the presence, as it were. There's an invitation that occurs, and we have to set aside the distractions, set aside the self-sabotage that can go on in those moments. And I would also say that alignment that happens takes practice. The consistency has to be there, to not just say in this one moment I want to align, but in all moments I want to align. And in the moments I feel a little shaky, I want a remembrance of how to do that within myself on a systemic level, that I can always return to what I call home base. That this is me in home base when I am locked locked in a conscious, aware way that I am connected fully with spirit. And that comes through the practice. It comes through consistency.
Always in the service of others, you will see yourself, and you'll see your own flaws. You'll see your own champion moments, and you can pick and choose. You have choice. You have free will. There are those things in life that we, at some point in time, have to come to understand we don't have power over. We don't have power over an earthquake in Turkey. And yet, as humankind, we might have power over our planet's, environment. What are we choosing in our own little world, our own space, if you will, to do something about it? And are we championing that? Are we attuned to that? Are we paying attention? Are we mindful of what is necessary in our own being to be okay? And it doesn't matter that a whole lot of people might not be. What matters is, can we trust that if we become the light in the midst of the darkness, that someone will see that light and they will follow that light? It's interesting that when I was a little boy, I used to go to Fenway Park, okay, when I was a kid, to see the Boston Red Sox. And in most games, we paid $4 to get in. I know that's going to make some people sick today, but we paid $3.50, $4 to get in for a bleacher seat. And we'd go in, and there was so many seats open because the team had just weren't winning all the time back then when I was young. And so they would, we'd sneak our way down to a nice box seat right by the field most games. And there was plenty of seats to pick from him. Most of the time we didn't get thrown out. Sometimes we did, but it was cool. We'd just sneak down another half an hour later, that's all. But anyway,
confessions.
Today, you see the Red Sox come up and then win the championship, and now you're probably bidding for the ticket and hoping you might get a seat, and there might be a seat left or standing room only, but you might. And why is that? The team has become popular. It became more adhered to people. People enjoy the game. They enjoy their families being there. And in one way, it's good because it shows that there's an attraction. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We must think, though, that the attraction also keeps that kid with the $4 out of the stadium because he can't afford it. So in the picture of spirituality, there's no real ticket for heaven. There's no real ticket for God. It's not about affordability. It's about what is attracting you, what's distracting you. Do you want to sit in the bleachers? Do you want to sit up front? Do you want to be at the game or don't you? And some people are going to have different talents for different things. If you're an artist and you paint the best you can, I don't care if you're a realist or if you're contemporary or you're just off the wall, or if you're a tagger of walls and down in the city. Be the best at what you can be and show the world that creativity is here. It's in the midst of minds around you. It's in the society. It brings the life up to being more than just getting by.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We watch people right now in the midst of war zones and in the midst of earthquake zones and in the midst of fire zones here in our own country. We watch people become more creative, become more open, out in the open, out with other people, lending a hand, doing things for others, even if it's just making a small token of remembrance, or if it's making a small token to help somebody hold their car keys. It doesn't matter. What it is that little tiny act of kindness, that little act of good just blossoms, and it begins to feel the weight of darkness begins to get light. The light sheds over, the sun comes up in the world, and things become better. We can concentrate on the horror of things, or we can concentrate on the possibilities of love. Possibilities of love overwhelm any power of hate and any power of disdain or darkness in our lives.
Mhm.
And so when we draw closer to spirit, the one thing I think we feel more than anything else, or at least for myself, I can speak for myself, and that is, I never felt loved after my mother passed. I couldn't. I didn't know how. I didn't know what to do. I didn't feel I deserved it. I felt I was responsible. She must have died because of me. You know, it was all this other, all kinds of other stories I can tell you about why that is, but I couldn't feel loved. It wasn't until I got into spiritualism, you know, had some inklings in the seminary and other things that I had done. I had some inklings that I'm getting close to something here that means something, but it was tainted with all these other controls, if you will. When I came into spiritualism, I was free to think for myself, as we were once called free thinkers. I was free to make choices, and I was free to take responsibility for those choices. And some of those choices I made, I took responsibility and I took the hit, you know, because I did the wrong things. But we learn as we go, and we evolve as we go, and we emerge from that humanness into understanding and respecting and taking care of one's own spiritual being, the soul itself. So as we go forward, I hope that I can be a pastor of the Journey Within with a sense of not only enlightening or having that insight, helping people see the insight, but also to be of help to say, this really is a positive, loving way of life.
Mhm.
And my friend, Janet Nohavik, was the most positive person I think I've ever known. You know, she was optimistic all the time. And sometimes to the point where like I would just scratch my head and go, Janet, what are you doing? You know, and we'd have those conversations. But you know what? Even if she failed, even if she didn't get what she always went back and had another, you know, had another thing to focus on. It always went forward.
Mhm.
We never go back. We always go forward. So in drawing closer to spirit, whether I'm drawing a picture, whether I'm drawing a cup of coffee, whether I'm always constantly thinking how fortunate I am,
Mm.
how much gratitude I have for this breath, for this day, for the friends I have, for people like you, for people like Janet, for how fortunate I am. I've had those experiences, how fortunate I am for those experiences as a young teenager and being a pain in the neck. How fortunate I am to have lived through it and be here. Now, how fortunate I am to have had those experiences so that I understand young people better today than I would have ever understood them before, you know, and the nature of things. How fortunate. And I think if we look to gratitude in our day,
Yes.
it heals everything, because there is nothing that significant that can separate us when we think of it in gratitude for the bigger picture of who we are. There's nothing that we can't, that can keep us away from God, that can keep us away from understanding our own souls and our own spirit and the goodness within us.
Very true.
I once was, working a volunteer at Attica prison for 5 years. I actually did that, but some people say, well, why did you do that? What do you want to be there for? You know, those terrible people, this type of thing. And I said, no, I wrote a poem about the men looking at the clock on the wall and how there was no way out. And the only way out was to go in.
Mm.
And to go in and become truthful with themselves, to live a life of truth and not the life of pain or societal pressures or poverty or this, but to find their truth, to find themselves. And I watched as several men emerge from that tomb, as I called it in my poem, to live a life in society and continue to stay out of prison and in society and be of help to communities with what they knew and how and what they had learned, not only from the tragedies of what they did, because that's a pretty heavy, you'd have to do a pretty heavy crime to get to Attica in the first place, but to take what they had done, what they had learned, and probably live a life struggling to forgive themselves for the loss of 20 or 30 years, but also coming to trust and let God run their lives to the point where nothing but good came out of it. You see? So,
And people have that opportunity to draw close to spirit at any time, at any moment.
anytime.
And as you said, it's not about having a golden ticket or a Fenway Park ticket to get in. That it's available to everyone. And in certain occasions in the world, you can feel that it is an empty ballpark. And then other occasions you can feel that it's full of people who are entering into that communion with spirit in beautiful heavenly ways that are because of that interior work that they've done of drawing close to spirit. And I had a thought while you were talking about the artists, because you're an artist and my mom's an artist. We've got artists in the family, so we love art. Oh, thanks. And I do feel that when we train the eye with beauty and art, we train the soul, and it helps us to draw closer to spirit in those ways. And that when people are in that space of creative force, they can feel, like some people would call it the muse, working with them in those ways, the guiding force for their pen or their paintbrush or whatever medium it is that they're using. And that force of being co-creator with the universe in those moments helps you to draw a little closer to the beauty of your soul and the beauty of the experience.
That's exactly right. That's exactly how it happens.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be to people is a simple one. It's a simple shift. And I had to learn it myself. It's not something I was doing. I used to wake up every day. I mean, trying to be a spiritual person, trying to be all that, and feel better about me and everything else. And so, and I used to wake up every day and go, okay, what do I do today? Give me my list, to do, and down my list I'd go, I got to do this, I got to do this, and I got to be personally responsible. I got to be a, authority over my own life. I've got to do and kind of crazy over it all, each day with the list. I got more lists hanging around in pockets of old jeans around here than I can tell you. But anyway, at one point, I said, and I'm asking the wrong question. No wonder I'm spinning. No wonder I still walk around feeling separated or distant from spirit, from God, from love. I'm still wandering around and reaching at straws and writing my to-dos and trying to be all that and the right person and do the right thing. And I said, I surrender. I give myself to you, to thee, completely. So the question changed from what should I do today to God, what would you have me do today? And then get on that boat and take a ride. Do what I'm told that is seen from the higher source as being right for the full picture of my life, not what's today, but what do I do today that fulfills a life that was given to me so freely and so lovingly? I'm the one that ruined it. I'm the one that knee-jerk reacted. I'm the one. so talk about taking personal responsibility. It basically was saying it like a loudspeaker. Hey, Joe, stop whining. No, stop moaning and
You know,
groaning.
whiner.
Yeah, stop moaning and groaning. Do something. Do what was meant to be done, that we see best for you. Do that instead. My whole life changed.
Yeah.
Overnight, within 24 hours. And some people say, oh, that's like a miracle. And I'll tell you, yes, it is. Most definitely.
Beautiful. Oh, well, this has been great. And it's such a good thing to go in deeper into this kind of topic so people can understand how they might apply those techniques, those ideas, those concepts, and that willingness to be with spirit in profound ways. Any last things you'd like to share with folks before we close for the day? Because it's been great.
I think that if I could share one thing with you is don't give up. Allow the process to take place, even the pain. There's beauty even in the pain. Whether you're sick, whether you're feeling anxious, whether you're feeling so like, don't take the immediate solution to a temporary problem. You know, don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt others. Just sit and pause, listen for this, and feel it. Feel for that. You know, listen with everything you are, and at the last resort, hear words. Because you are loved. The spirit is there. Not to haunt you, it's to help you. It's to guide you. It's to be part of real life, to coexist with you, to be alive with you. Allow your life to be guided by love, by choosing peace, by finding a joy, and by sharing that with others. Give it away. Okay? Because make room for more. It's always good. So thank you so much for having me. It was a nice discussion. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Really appreciate you being on the show today. And for those of you who would like more Joe, you should visit his website, josephshiel.com. So he does have classes, and he does a lot of ministering work. And we're so glad that you are the pastor of the Journey Within Church, and you can hold steady for spiritualism and bring more light to the world in the work that you do as a medium and as a teacher. So thank you again for being on the show, and everybody tune in next week when we'll have another great guest, another great topic on Wednesdays with Willa. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.